Perfect. Okay, well, welcome back to another week of our parenting class. I was saying this earlier, but I feel like we're really getting into the meat of the videos now. I think there was a lot of great setup that was really valuable for the past couple of weeks, but I think last week and really moving forward to the rest of the series, it's a lot of like you could take notes and have lots of notes or I don't know, things to do following the videos. So I'm excited for this week. So this is the start of a new video. This is his sort of moving into a big conversation about honor, and it's continuing the Bible study that he started 2 weeks ago. We continued in a little bit last week talking about that 1 Corinthians letter from Paul, the love is patient, love is kind, and sort of how that's a good model for us in our behavior and the way that we interact with those around us. If you can hear a strange noise coming from my computer, I'm very sorry, I don't know how to stop it. So I'm going to try to be on mute as much as possible today. So if y'all want to be extra talkative, I'm going to really try to not talk that much because I don't know why my computer is constantly alerting me that it's charging, but it's really letting me know that it's charging and making lots of beeping noises. Before we get started, is there anything that sort of like stood out to you last week or something that you have applied from what we've been doing in our study so far in your life of parenting?
I got a book a couple months ago, probably around the holidays, and it's called something like Me and My Feelings or something like that. And it's really written for younger children than what I have, but a neighbor who's a therapist had recommended it to me, and then I had not done anything with it. I got it and then put it aside. And then when Greta said the other week about talking through feelings and modeling feelings and knowing how to have that vocabulary and all that kind of stuff, and I'm terrible about talking about feelings. I don't like it. It's just not my thing, and I've tried to do better. And so I read the book and then gave it to my child to read. And so we're going to talk about it once she finishes reading it. And if she gets up while we're in the class, I'll have her bring it out so I can show you guys the cover. Anyhow, that's something I've been working on just to try to improve myself and to improve our ability to talk to each other.
Cool. Well, I'm glad that we have this collective of people kind of doing all of this together. So you may be the facilitators of the class, but I'm glad that you're feeling facilitated too and with. So with that, I'm going to play our video for this week. We're watching like a 10-minute clip, and yeah, I'm looking forward to this week's video. I'm going to share my screen. Hold on, I'm gonna let someone in. It'd be very jarring to come into a video versus a group. Hello, welcome. We're about to start watching our video, so you're right on time for our clip for the weekend. Okay. So again, we're watching about a little bit over 10 minutes, and I apologize for the weird beeping noise on my computer. I don't know how to stop it, or I would.
When our kids were young, we had 2 rules on our home, just 2. Honor your mother and don't tell a lie. Honor your mother and don't tell a lie. Now, having observed a lot of families, we concluded that if our kids honored Sandra and I honored Sandra, that they would probably honor me, and hopefully they would honor each other. And we discovered through the years that honoring mom is like a keystone rule. It trickles down to just about everybody. And it was very important to us that our sons, Andrew and Garrett, learn how to honor and show respect to women. Rule number 2, don't tell a lie, was super important to us. As I explained to my children, we don't tell a lie because lying breaks the relationship. That was always the reason I gave for never telling a lie. We don't tell a lie because Moses told us not to tell a lie. We don't tell lies because lying breaks the relationship. And I would say to them, the worst thing that you could do, the worst thing that could happen from my perspective is for our relationship to be broken. So if our kids heard it once, they heard it 1,000 times. The worst thing you can do is tell a lie. The worst thing you can do is tell a lie. The worst thing you can do is tell a lie because lying breaks the relationship. So when Andrew, our oldest, was about 6 years old, the two of us were driving somewhere. He was in the back seat and he was thinking. I could always tell when Andrew was thinking because he would get really, really quiet. And then out of nowhere, he blurts out, "Dad, I know something worse than telling a lie." Now, he'd been in the back seat the whole time trying to come up with something that's worse than telling a lie. I mean, surely there's something worse than telling a lie. So I said, "Really, Andrew, what's worse than telling a lie?" And he said, "Worshiping the devil," which is really hard to argue with. So from that point on, we had 3 rules in our family: honor mom, don't tell a lie, and don't worship the devil. Anyway, this is part 3 of our series entitled Parenting and the 21st Century. So if you are a parent, about to be a parent, you hope to be a parent, maybe you're helping another parent, or maybe you're watching your own kids parent, this series is for you. It's basically for anybody who feels the weight and the responsibility of equipping an infant, a child, a teenager, a student for life. But as I pointed out in episode 1 of this series, when it comes to good examples of family and parenting, unfortunately, the Bible is really not all that helpful. In fact, the Bible is not even encouraging. On the other hand, when it comes to examples of real world family dysfunction, the Bible is kind of your go-to source. I mean, even Jesus experienced conflict with his siblings. They thought he was crazy. They thought he was crazy until after the resurrection anyway. But Jesus, as we said last time, Jesus and the authors of the New Testament provide us with a foundation and applications for being great parents. And while Jesus never talked about parenting directly, he actually laid the foundation for New Testament parenting when he laid the foundation for New Testament behavior. He laid the foundation for New Testament behavior when he issued his new covenant command. He called it his new command. "A new command I give you," and here it was, to love others as Jesus or as he loved us. So the way forward for us parents is actually embedded in that one big all-encompassing command. I use the term embedded because the implications for parenting are not necessarily apparent. After all, Jesus wasn't talking specifically to parents when he commanded us to love as he loved. Fortunately, as we said last time, the Apostle Paul would come along and he would give us some handles. He would give us some love handles. Essentially, he would explain what it looks like to love. He would explain what it looks like to apply the Jesus brand of love in the real world. He would basically say, here's how love behaves. Here's how love behaves under pressure. Here's how love behaves at home. Now, in my opinion, Paul's most famous explanation of what the Jesus brand of love looks like and behaves like is actually found in his letter to Christians living in Corinth, and we call it the letter of 1 Corinthians. And last week, we began our journey through Paul's application list, but if you were with us last time, you'll remember we only got 3 words in. Love is patient. We got stuck there because, well, let's face it, oftentimes parenting falls apart right there with patience, right? But Paul has a lot more to say in this chapter that pertains directly to parenting. So here we go. Love is patient. Up next, love is kind. Now, the term kind sounds a little soft. It might even sound weak, but kindness is actually an expression of strength. In fact, unkindness is weakness. Unkindness is actually demonstrates a lack of self-control. If you are unkind, you have lost control of yourself. Something else is controlling you. Unkindness demonstrates a lack of self-awareness. Unkind people, they don't even know they're unkind. I've shared this definition with you before, but honestly, I think it's more relevant in a discussion on parenting than anywhere else. Kindness, this is so important. Kindness is choosing to loan someone your strength rather than reminding them of their weakness. It's loaning someone your strength rather than reminding them of their weakness. Now, parents, here's the thing. Your children already know where and when they failed. They do not need to be reminded, especially by you. Mom, your words weigh 100 pounds. And Dad, our words, they weigh 500 pounds. And I'm not sure why, but they just do. So loan your children your strength and let the world remind them of their weakness. Let the world remind them of their shortcomings. Like you, they wake up every single day wondering if they measure up, if they've got what it takes. Every day, the world they live in makes them doubt themselves. When they fail, when they fall short, when they don't measure up, when they mess up, find a way, this is so important, find a way to side with them, not against them. Loan them your strength. When I got my first traffic ticket, I was 16 years old, and I was driving home from school in my mom's beige four-door Catalina, a spectacularly unimpressive vehicle. And when I got the ticket, of course, I was so afraid to tell my dad. And when I told him, he certainly wasn't happy, but he did not remind me of what I already knew. Instead, and he didn't have this terminology, but instead he loaned me his strength. That's why I still remember this story. He didn't bail me out. If he had bailed me out, that would have been a reminder of my weakness. Hey, give me that ticket, son. I'll find out what you need to do. Implication being, Andy, you can't do anything right, including figure out how to handle a traffic ticket. Instead, he took the posture that I've tried to take with my kids. Essentially, his posture was this: oh no, oh no, oh no. In fact, this is a great habit to get into whenever your kids get into trouble. Just, oh no. That's too bad. I'm so sorry you got a ticket. I held out the ticket, and he didn't even take it out of my hand. He asked, so what's next? And of course, I didn't know. And he said, well, turn it over on the back. There's some instructions. And then he just left it to me to figure it out. He honored me by assuming I was smart enough to figure out and responsible enough to follow through. He sided with me, not against me. And I ended up going to court. And he went with me. I actually had to go before a judge, but I never doubted in the whole process that my dad was not only with me, my dad was for me. He loaned me his strength. Now, while I'm on this, and this is a big deal, this is why you should never, and some of you are gonna disagree with this, but I'll just throw it out there anyway. This is why you should never announce a punishment ahead of time to your children. This is such a big deal. Never announce a punishment ahead of time. That's actually siding against your children. Here's what that communicates. Not only do you have the potential to mess up, I'm anticipating it. I'm prepared for it. Here's what's gonna happen if you break the rule. So never announce a punishment ahead of time. Don't threaten, just expect the best and then act shocked when they mess up. Oh no, I didn't see this coming. That's terrible. Now you're gonna have to face the consequences. I hate that for you. Take their side and then honor them by allowing them to carry the full weight of the consequences. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about discipline later, and this will make a little more sense, but one more thing on this. As your kids get older and they mess up, break a rule, whatever, one of the first things they wanna know is what? One of the first things they wanna know is, what are you gonna do? What's the punishment? Act unprepared. Say, I don't know. I am so surprised by this behavior. I just never thought you would, whatever it is they did, and leave them hanging. Now, when they're young, you gotta be swift, you gotta connect the dots, but once they're older, drag it out. And again, this will make more sense in just a few minutes. The point here is simply this: side with them before you discipline them, because this is what God did for you. Think about it. If you're a Christian, a Jesus follower, while you were still a sinner, God said, what? You're a sinner? No, while you were still a sinner, Christ sided with you. He died for you. He loaned you his strength. He did for you what you could not do for yourself. So, quick question before we move on. What is your go-to response? What is your go-to response to weakness in your children? Think about this. What is your natural reaction? What is it you say? How do you respond? What is your go-to response when you sense weakness or failure in your children? Do you side with them? Or more specifically, do they feel as if you side with them? Or do you side and move against them? Love is patient. Love is kind. Moving on. Here's what.
So we have lots more to unpack from what he said, and he'll keep going and he'll get into some more things. But for now, I think that's plenty of a chunk to talk about. He just dropped a lot, as per usual in that clip. So welcome to know you came in while we were in the video, but hi, it's good to see you. So what are your first impressions? Like what's the first thing you want to kind of dive into in this conversation?
Well, I like what he said. What do you think about when your children do something that you know makes you upset or disappoints you or falls short of expectations or whatever? I have twins that are 11, boy, girl, and my daughter has Down syndrome, which is a whole different set of expectations that I said last time. You have to come to grips with at birth. So, but then, you still have to hold her to high expectations. So, you have to change things around, and then she still is going to fall short of your expectations. I mean, children always will. So what we got in the habit of saying, and we say this, and it was on our Christmas card, not this past year, but the year before. And I can't remember the Christmas card, but it was pretty funny. But I mean, just constantly saying, I will do better. I mean, for both of them, because that is just the best thing to say, because you can't go back and change whatever they've done, right, for either child. So if you can only look forward. So we don't dwell on whatever it was that either child did, or disappointed or whatever. We just leave that alone and just say, I will do better. And they have to always say that. So I don't know. That was what I thought of. Yeah.
I liked what Andy said about making them wait a little bit to, it made me think of growing up. I didn't get in a lot of trouble. My brother did all that for us, but I felt like it was because I really just disappointing my dad or my parents made me feel like so scared to do anything wrong. And I feel like that's kind of where that waiting, I think that's where he's going to go. Like, you just don't want to disappoint, because you feel like I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. Like, you honor them, and so you show that you really don't think they're capable of that, and then they kind of punish themselves a little bit, I think, in the waiting, or they think about that before they actually choose something that's not good. And I also liked the comparison to that's what Jesus did for us. I've never put that together. But he did give us his strength, and he did, he took on the punishment for us. Anyway, I liked that comparison for sure. This was a good lesson, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so bad at, when my children do something wrong, the first thing I do is point out what they did wrong. Well, they know generally what they did wrong. At least I hope they know what they did wrong. And that just, that's what my father did to me. And it didn't work in my case. So I don't know why I think it's going to work in their case. So that was a good lesson for me. I love that, give them your strength and not point out their weakness.
Yeah, I feel the same way about like grades and stuff. When, I'm going through grades and I'm like, how in the world could you have gotten that grade? And don't you know, and then I'm thinking to myself, they're already disappointed enough in themselves and they know what they did wrong. There's no reason to point it out. There's just, I guess it makes us feel better. Like we're acknowledging, oh my God, so bad. But I love what Andy's saying and say, oh my gosh, I'm so shocked that you did that. And almost, I mean, put the onus back on them to not only do better, but to also figure out how to do, you know, going forward, how to make it right. So yeah, I wish he had been around. I wish I'd listened to this when my kids were little, so I would have done it all right.
Make it would have worked.
I, I don't know.
I so agree with that. Gosh, think where we would be today. It would have saved us a lot of heartache, probably. Stacy, I love the example that you brought about how Andy Stanley tied this into Jesus, and that's what he's done for us. Because when we do something bad, he's not punishing us immediately. We suffer the consequences of our own sin. And that really is a great example for parenting. And often letting the children, they know, just like James said, they know what they've done. So we become the enemy and against them when we point it out, rather than strengthening them in their weakness and letting them figure it out. And then maybe if we just ask the question of what could you do, what do you think you could do differently next time in making a better decision or something. Anyway, I really liked how you brought in that that's how Jesus parents us.
Oh, I was going to say that so much of this I've done wrong, and so I would like to be able to get my own adult children who have, you know, children of their own now. We just had a grandchild yesterday. He's 1 year old, 1 day old today. You know, these young parents to do this, because I was always trying to be a fixer. If my child had a speeding ticket, and maybe it's because I was a lawyer and I was used to fixing problems, but I did too much fixing of the problems that my children got into instead of letting them figure it out.
Yeah, that's one thing we experienced recently that kind of hit home with me, because I've never thought about it as in wait and see what happens and let the consequences come. I've thought about it as I need to be prepared and know what I'm going to do. You know, so Wesley and I will talk and say, okay, if this happens, then the phone goes away for a week, or, you know, whatever it is. You know, we anticipate behaviors that we've seen to start to crop up, and then we think, well, if it gets worse, or if there's a, you know, an incident that involves this is what we'll do. And maybe we need to take a step back and then see what happens, and then talk about what we're going to do instead of have a plan for what it's going to be. But yeah, we did have a school situation recently, and I thought about how to handle that. And my child had missed an assignment or something, and you know, I didn't want to intervene. I didn't want to be the person who came in and said, well, you know, this is what happened and she missed the assignment and all this kind of stuff. And you know, handle that, you know, have the conversation with the teacher, figure it out. And they worked out a compromise. It wasn't exactly what she wanted. So she did deal with some of the consequences of missing the work that she was supposed to turn in. But at the same time, she learned how to advocate for herself and, you know, speak up for herself and talk through the situation, and without any intervention on my part, which I thought was hopefully a good thing, and will help down the road. But yeah, so I think I did okay on that, but I got to regroup on the thinking through the punishment thing ahead of time.
Well, the thinking through the, so again, so we, with Snow, we encountered a lot at public school, a lot of behavior issues. And I say behavior issues because behavior is communication. All behavior is communication. And when you're talking about a person that has a severe speech and language impairment, then you're talking about a lot of feelings that she is not able to express in words. And so these behavior issues are simply her trying to communicate the best way that she can on what she needs. And I have learned so much on this, but you know, there's a PhD and a behavior therapist named Dr. Ross Green, and he's written The Explosive Child and numerous other books that I can't remember the names of right now, but his name is Dr. Ross Green, and he has something called the Lives in the Balance. And he says that all behavior is communication, and that it really is a bunch of lagging skills that then become unsolved problems. And if you look at behavior as not a disappointment and not, you know, as rather really just communication and where the lagging skills are, then you can address the lagging skills and what that child actually needs instead of being so disappointed about the unsolved problems and so punitive on taking away consequences. Because when you're talking about a kid that has a disability like mine, a lot of times if you remove the consequences, if you take away take away privileges, take away something, and you give a punitive consequence, it doesn't compute. And it's really kind of how our police system works. It's like, if you do something, then boom, you're going to be in jail, or you're going to be, you know, and a lot of times that just doesn't, I'm not saying you still need to have boundaries, but it doesn't work. It doesn't go and correct the problem the next time. You really have to address the lagging skills and what that child needs in order then to prevent it the next time. And you do it in a positive way. You're supposed to do it. And so that's what we strive to do. But human nature is there's no way you're going to be able to do all of that, which is why we say, what can we do better next time? Because we try to figure it out with both kids, and we don't do as good of a job as applying it to JP, but it really needs to be applied to everyone, is what we've realized. And so like the lagging skills on this Dr. Ross Green's website on Lives in the Balance, you know, difficulty maintaining focus, difficulty handling transitions, difficulty considering the likely outcomes or considering the consequence of actions, more impulsive. You know, I mean, you can apply these to each one of these lagging skills turns into a slew of different unsolved problems. So it's just kind of the way you look at what has happened and you try to address that. Does that make any sense? That's what we try to do, but we can't be perfect all the time.
I do understand that completely, because, and thank you so much for your vulnerability and all of that. And you know, I really respect how you're raising your children. But, you know, sometimes disabilities come in the form of, you know, emotional issues. And I too agree with, you know, acting out as a way of trying to emote what's going on inside and having to address that as a mom. Yes. I mean, sometimes it looks like they're going against the grain, but they're really just trying to say, hey, I'm having a problem with this, but they don't know how to tell you that. So that's a really good point. There's usually a reason for the bad behavior. There just is. Yeah, it's the same thing saying, you know, people doing drugs or whatever, or just, you know, usually there's a reason for bad behavior and trying to cover something up. And so that's good. That's good. I don't know where we're going with this, but this is a good comment.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
it's good.
What Dr. Green says is that it's hard to really look at the lagging skills and draw that line to the unsolved problems.
Yeah.
But you try to do it in a positive way, which then goes back to what the video that we saw. I think that's what he was trying to say about removing consequence, you know, delivering I don't know. He left us off with that part. And
I do think that's the oh no moment. Like, you just take some time, you see the bad behavior and you say, oh no. and then you take some time to think about it before immediately reacting, which I think is certainly the harder thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That oh no moment to me is that great pause between an action and a reaction. And that's why oh no is so useful. Snow, I just also want to say that what you shared was extremely meaningful, and that is such an accurate description of what happens with people's behavior, and not only children, but we see it in adults. And you know, like y'all say, you know, you can, people that are turning to drugs or alcohol because they can't express their inner feelings. And it just all goes back to why the communication and giving children early on a vocabulary, an emotion vocabulary, so that they can feel free to express themselves and not internalize so much of their feelings where it comes out in behaviors, outward behaviors.
Yeah, we try. I don't know. When we watch church online, which is what we've been doing since March, um, and even when we go to church, we have a hard time with both twins. You know, we have a young boy who has a hard time sitting still, and then we have Snow who has also a hard time sitting still. And so sitting still and quiet is very, very challenging. But we try to pretend like we're like in church, right? We put the dog away and we watch it on Daddy's big computer in the library. And what we found is that positively setting up a tally system where we have Snow, Dad, we have Snow, JP, Mom, and Dad, and every time you have to praise them for being quiet, and you have to praise them where you normally would not praise them. So that's what we don't do enough of. Like we found with Snow that she responds better to positive than to removing of the consequences, but yet so does JP and so does everybody. So if you positively give them points on a tally system for when they're quiet, then it's like they smile and they're so proud. And they're just, and you haven't done anything but just written a little line. And then they just get so then the more they participate, then they get another tally and they get all excited. And it's I can't apply this to everything, but that is a good, you know, that's a good way of setting up something positively so that you don't actually have that negative, hey, we're gonna take away electronics because you were loud in church, right? Because we've set it up so positively before that they get all excited and they're perfect. Does that make, I mean, I don't know, can't figure it out all the time.
Well, I think that gets into like what he's been talking about so much really since the beginning of this series has been like prioritizing relationship over like your own self-image or you know, your goals and who you are, and what you like hope other people to think about you. Because like I'm sure, again, I'm not a parent, but I know there's lots of people who feel very intimidated to have their kids in church because they're like, oh, my kids are going to sit still, or you know, we want to sit in the back so we can rush out in case something goes wrong. Whereas if you know you're doing what you're saying, Snow, like this is great, like you've done great for the first 5 minutes, like I'm super stoked that you've like made it this far, and like let's see how much further we can go, and this is all like you're doing great, and I believe that you have the capability within you to sit here for however long we're going to be here, which sort of gets back into what he said at the beginning of this video, which is the kindness is loaning someone your strength instead of reminding them of their weakness. Like, I mean, you mentioned this too, Greta, that we all have things that we, as adults, we still like fine-tuning our behavior and figuring out how we're gonna function in the world. But to sort of like support our positives instead of just like noting all of the ways that we failed, and sort of for ourselves and for those that we interact with to have those oh no moments of like, I didn't expect this behavior from you, but we can move forward from it, and sort of, and he'll set that up in coming weeks of sort of different strategies he has for what to do after the oh no. But yeah, to sort of tie that all together. So what from this week do you think you can take into your next 7 days of being a parent, or what sort of stands out to you as a way that you can sort of apply this in your relationships?
We'll try to use the oh no and wait. That's provided they do something wrong this week. I mean, that's a finite amount of time. And if you give them the time to stew on it a little bit, to come up, their imagination could be worse than the actual punishment. So I love that aspect of it. So it's a little bit of a mind game, but I do like that oh no moment. I'm going to try to use that.
And I think when you wait, it just gives them a chance to feel that you are being intentional about what you're deciding as the consequence rather than you are reacting out of anger. And hopefully it models for them, taking that pause and not reacting out of anger when things are upsetting.
I was just thinking, even I keep going back to this thing about loaning somebody else your strength, that they will so respect that, rather than getting fussed at more and more and more, that doesn't, I can even picture myself in this, said, okay, I get it. I did wrong, but that really is so counterproductive to just rag about it on and on. And you're in control of the situation when they've done something wrong, and you know it, and they know it, and they know you know it. It's such a teachable moment. I've just blown it so many times in that situation, but I'm not perfect either. But I wish Andy Stanley had been around, or at least somebody had presented the same concepts to me, 30 years ago.
Well, and I think to Elizabeth's point earlier, I think often we're harder on ourselves than anybody else is. So, and our kids are the same way. I mean, I had an Andy Stanley experience. July 4th week, Sam was at the beach and he called me just out of the frame because he'd gotten a speeding ticket. And, he was so tormented. Just him having to call me and tell me that was almost punishment enough, right? So I do think that we are so much harder on ourselves. And then even that certainly some things need or require a consequence, but sometimes I wonder if the consequences are not more external and what the world thinks that we need to do, or what we're seeing other people do, and less about, like, I like the oh no, because it gives you time to really think about what they did. Was it really that bad? Have they already punished themselves enough? And as opposed to the prescribed 2 weeks no phone or no TV or go to your room, which is how I was always punished as a child. Go to your room, which nowadays my kids would think was fantastic. So I don't know. I just think that a lot of times that the prescribed punishments they're more like the world telling us what to do, as opposed to us really looking at the infraction and deciding, maybe there really isn't a punishment necessary. I mean, maybe they've already doled enough punishment onto themselves.
Well, I think that sets us up really well for next week. He'll share a couple of kind of examples from growing up and sort of what he's learned and things he's seen other people do and modeling some of the parenting skills that he's trying to pass on to us, of sort of what it looks like to see a break in a relationship, see a transgression, and sort of move on with your child towards fixing that, moving, being better, figuring out how to do it better next time, and all the while exciting with your kids sort of along the way. So we will not meet next week or the week after. We have 2 weeks off Christchurch wide from Sunday school where we have intergenerational offerings. So we'll have next Sunday, we'll have listening in Lent all day in the churchyard with stations of how to pray. And then the week after that will be Stations of the Cross in the churchyard, a sort of like self-paced opportunities to participate in that offering, which means that this class will not meet for 2 weeks. So this is a huge cliffhanger for you of you've learned how to address when something goes wrong, but we haven't gotten into then what you do about it. So you can always watch ahead and come with notes from the videos from Andy Stanley. But we will not meet for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll come back together and keep sort of sorting through this. So thanks for all y'all's insight and for sharing sort of all the ways that we could be better moving forward, but sort of working on that together as a group. So I'm going to close us in prayer, and if I don't see you before the next 2 weeks, then it's been great to see you guys today. So the Lord be with you. God, I thank you for this opportunity to be your church together. I thank you that even though we may be physically separated, that we are a community that is loved by you and cared for by you and guided by you. I thank you for each one of the parents gathered here today, that they love you, serve you, and want to be better followers of you and guide their children in your ways. I thank you for all the ways that you have challenged us in the past week and the ways that we have learned and the ways that we have grown. I thank you that you've been with us through the difficult and the great moments. I pray that you are with us as we go out into the world and to apply these skills today and always, and that we would never forget that you always side with us. That's in your son's name we pray. Amen. Well, thanks so much for being here this morning. Get outside on this beautiful day, and I hope to see you at Listening in Lent and Stations of the Cross. And if not, then I'll see you in 2 weeks when we're back here for our parenting class.